The Mossad takes both kinds of warriors, the positive and the negative. Their reasons for leaving their old lives matter less than the ability to function in complete isolation in an enemy country under an entirely different identity. You are both a soldier and a general, Siskafer. It's a heavy, emotional, and intellectual burden. Hoping to find a way to obviate or at least mitigate that burden, Arari also initiated the other particularly ambitious recruitment program. I heard that the KGB used to identify orphans who wouldn't have any restrictive commitments at the age of 13 or 14, took them under its wing, and trained them under the best possible conditions to be operatives functioning undercover. I thought it was a good idea. He got Cesaria's psychologist to find a 14-year-old Israeli boy without parents, and Cesaria took him under his wing, without his knowing who was now taking care of him. A psychologist and 2 tutors kept constant tabs on him, and he was given an excellent education, enrichment classes in art and culture, and time for sports and leisure. We told him we wanted him to serve the nation when he grew up, says Arari. All of the grooming and tuition was a success. The boy became a soldier and then a talented young officer, highly cultured and capable of functioning under a cover as a foreigner. But the project as a whole failed. It became clear to me that it may work in a totalitarian country like Russia, but not in Israel. The Israeli Jew doesn't have that kind of perseverance, and very soon he wanted a girlfriend, a civilian career, and a good salary. He would likely have aspirations in very different directions than what the intelligence world could offer. We had no alternative but to just let him go his own way. Other recruitment policies proved more successful. For practical operations, the Mossad actually became an early pioneer in gender equality. That's a surprise, isn't it? It is a huge advantage having a woman on the team during an operation, says Ethan. A team made up of both sexes always provides a better cover story and reduces suspicions. If recruits manage to make it past the initial screening stage, they then begin the operatives course. Most Caesarea cadets never visit Mossad headquarters during their training and have no contacts with other trainees. They are exposed to as little information as possible so that they will have little to reveal if they are captured or tortured. During training, their home base is one of several apartments in Tel Aviv, so that they won't be exposed to regular Mossad employees who come to work at headquarters every day. Cadets undergo training in a host of spycraft fields, encrypted Morse code transmission, that is until technological developments rendered that mode of communication obsolete, surveillance, losing tails, weaponry, and hand-to-hand combat. They also study the geography, politics, and history of the Arab countries. Skills are honed in a series of practice missions, almost entirely on Israeli soil, and are usually mundane: slipping a listening device into a telephone in a bank lobby, recovering innocuous documents, breaking into homes or businesses just to prove the recruit has the skill. The creation of an elaborate cover story goes well beyond a fake name. The recruit is experienced to learn an entirely new, fictitious biography, where he was born and raised, who his parents were, the social, cultural, and economic background in which he was raised, his hobbies, and so forth. A passport issued by a friendly base country or forged by the Mossad will allow the warrior to travel freely, even to countries that don't admit Israelis. The counterfeit profession, meanwhile, typically is one that requires frequent international travel and lots of time spent working alone. Without partners, offices, or regular hours, a newspaper reporter or photographer, for example, or a screenwriter doing research for a movie script both work well. Because neither requires much explanation. The cover story, molded over time, distances the recruit from his true self and endows him with a new life in a new country that arouses no suspicion. Next, recruits practice creating second-level covers specific to individual situations. A warrior needs to be able to plausibly account for why he was in a particular place at a particular time. Lingering outside a government ministry, for instance, monitoring how many people come and go if pestered by a curious police officer. In order to be, I read that poorly, whatever. In order to be believable, that explanation needs to be given quickly, calmly, and with as little detail as possible. Offering too much information can arouse suspicion as easily as no explanation at all. The trainers will ratchet up the pressure by simulating arrest and brutal interrogation. A Caesarea warrior codenamed Kurtz, said that this is the toughest part of the course. They sent us in pairs to Jerusalem to shadow foreign diplomats. Seemed like a simple assignment, just follow them to and report without establishing contact, he said. We were equipped with foreign passports, and our instructions were that under no circumstance were we to reveal to anyone who we really were. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, 3 police cars pull up, and a few other thugs in civilian clothes jump us, knock us down, handcuff us, and throw us into the wagon. They took us to the Shin Bet interrogation facility in the Russian compound in Jerusalem. We spent 3.5 horrible days there without sleep, handcuffed and blindfolded. For part of the time, we were handcuffed to a chair with our arms behind us in a position that tensed our entire bodies. Part of the time, they chained us to the ceiling, forcing us to stand on tiptoe. During the interrogations, policemen and Shin Bet agents beat us and spit on us. Heard that they even urinated on one guy. The goal was to see who would break and who would survive with his counterfeit cover. Kurtz did not break. If he had, he likely would have been cut from the program. Upon completion of the course, successful cadets qualify as operatives and begin going on missions in target countries. Harari introduced iron discipline into Caesarea and demanded absolute obedience. Anyone who didn't follow the path he laid down found himself immediately on the outside. The division's offices on the 11th floor of 2 Kaplan Street, Tel Aviv, were run quietly and with exemplary order. Mike brought a European atmosphere with him to Caesarea, said Ethan. The speech, the finesse, the manners, the way of behavior. His office was always clean and tidy, tip-top, and so was he, in his behavior and dress. He was always well-groomed, clean-shaven, with the scent of his favorite French Mascar cologne following him around wherever he went. This was important because he got the whole unit accustomed to working in the atmosphere of the countries from which we ostensibly came. Good intelligence and a strong Caesarea cost money, Harari told Amit. He demanded bigger and bigger budgets, which he spent on training personnel and on the formation of more and more operational frameworks and networks. Harari's people opened hundreds of commercial firms in innumerable spheres and countries, which would serve the Mossad for many years after his departure. Most of them did not have an immediate use, but Harari had the foresight to see, for example, that it would one day be advantageous for Caesarea to control a shipping company in the Middle Eastern country. Sure enough, there came a time when the unit needed a civilian shipping vessel to provide cover for a Mossad team in the waters off Yemen. The Mossad unit loaded packages of meat onto a vessel, shipping it from place to place while secretly carrying out their espionage mission. In 1967, Harari's changes began producing noticeable results, and Caesarea operatives in target countries were transmitting valuable information back to Israel on a daily basis, mostly related to Israel's main adversaries at the time, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. The Mossad, Amman, and the government justifiably allotted many resources to the preparations for the next military confrontation with the Arab states, which indeed ended up coming that June. However, Israeli intelligence failed to spot the next major challenge: millions of Palestinians ready to fight for the return of their motherland. A wave of Palestinian terrorism against Israelis and other Jews would soon sweep through the Middle East and Europe. We were not ready for this new menace, said Harari. What kind of fucking arrogance is that? Like, you fucking land your country, carve it out of another person's country, and it's just like, oh, it's cool, nothing's gonna happen. It's just like Antifa.